बताइएगा. Good morning to all of you. Today I will discuss about how to approach political science, specifically in mains exam. From 3-4 years, if you watch, then you can find the paper of the subject. Specifically, I'll talk about paper 1. More or less, paper 1 seems to be very easy. Every time questions are directly asked. So, what we can say, a kind of general paper. But you cannot find the score as much. It's not like the general paper is there, so people are scoring 150 or more than 150. Even 120, 125 is considered to be very good score, specifically those who are making ranks. Otherwise, the general concentration of score on paper 1 is around 115, 115. And when the paper is quite easy. So, where is the issue? Where is the problem? And to a certain extent, what I analyze, it is not all about just the knowledge of that particular topic or the content, I mean, you can say the idea of about that knowledge. It's all about the approach, how you go for that particular question. I'll take some examples. For example, this time there was a one question related to the Gramscian concept of hegemony. So normally when such questions are there, we keep on started writing what was the idea of hegemony. But before writing it, you need to make very much clear that actually the idea given by Gramsci was a major change, a transition in the ideology of Marxism itself over there. Because this question was well discussed, why Marxism is not evolving in the same pattern as it has been predicted by Marx. And when the questions come, the role of state as defined by Marx will be always secondary, or what we say the superstructure, and will be always controlled by the base. So it was the Gramsci who come up with the idea of hegemony and try to define the role of state as well as civil society. So just started what is hegemony, you need to give a little bit introduction to why he has given the idea of hegemony. Now this is one of the basic problem. It's not all about that students are unaware of this fact. They are very much aware of the fact. If such questions are there which make a transition, I repeat my words, which make a transition in a particular ideology or a particular line of thinking, then you need to explain for that deviation or change, for that change. This is one of the important notion. That's one of the important notion. You need to go for explain why these changes are there. And you cannot find only this change here. Even in case of liberalism also. Suppose there is a one question on any neoliberal thinker, any notion. Suppose any questions come from this Hayek or Nozick. So why neoliberalism has come, how it is a transitional one from the liberal to modern liberalism, and then it is neoliberalism. So whatever you say introduction, this introduction is all about whatever they have asked, what is the background, what are the factors that led to emergence of that, This is what the first basic thing while writing any answer, Most of the time we find the question very much easy directly, and we just start explaining the things, okay, this is what the notion of ideology is there, and whatever the content we push them. But technically you need to reach the idea where it has been generated. So the background is very much very much needed. Liberalism पे एक और example है. Like suppose in liberalism there is a one more question based on, in neoliberalism, based on the new changes coming in the neoliberal ideologies. So until and unless you talk about Washington consensus, how the Washington consensus has changed a lot of elements in the neoliberalism, so any new thinkers cannot be explained fully. So it will be always remembered, whatever the notion, whatever the idea, whosoever thinker falls in category of which line, which ideology, and why such changes are coming, what's the background of that way of thinking. For example, when the Nozick started writing, in the first few chapters he criticized Rawls severely because the idea of neoliberalism was emerging at that time. So he criticized the idea of justice which has been given by Rawls, but criticized on few parameters. So anything right about the Nozick, so you have to talk about what are the factors that has given the rise to the neoliberalism, and in that context Nozick has come up with his own idea, and then you come to explain. This is what the first thing is that. Now after this one, you need to explain the concept or the direct question which has been asked. The question you need to explain that particular question. But here a very interesting phenomena. When you explain, you need to be very much careful that it should be written in a language, the language of political science. It's not all about you're explaining the hegemony and your answer is more or less in a general way of writing. It should be in terms, so one can differentiate, okay, this answer belongs to the political science. So what we say, the terms, what we say technically, the language of your writing, it should not be general explanatory writing. It should be proper political science way. And I would say that most of the book actually writes in that way. But whenever we read, what we do, we just learn the essence, and when we have to reproduce, we use our own language. So every subject has its own language. Political science has its own language. So you need to stick with the language while explaining the concept. And these thinkers specifically used certain terms, what we say key terms, used by thinker to explain those things. For example, if you are using the same explanation, if I am talking about, if you are answering the hegemony, so even in hegemony there are a lot of technical words he has used, like structure of validation, structure of coercion, common sense. These technical words has been used by Ramsey itself. So without mentioning those technical words, again your answer will be more or less a very journalistic answer. That should be, again, while explaining the term, the key terms must be there in your answer. At least every concept could be explained around 4 or 5 terms. Without 4 or 5 terms you cannot explain. For example, suppose we are explaining Rawls' idea of justice. So without talking about primary goods, without talking about veil of ignorance, without talking about original position, without talking about lexical priority, the theory has no meaning. I mean, these are the technical words to explain the theory. So this you have to do. I mean, explaining the concept with the key terms, then only ensure your mark. And the third thing is that it is mainly related to the statements. It's mainly related to the statement. At least one statement given by that thinker or any other thinker which explain the idea. Look, I'm talking about ideal answer which can fetch almost 60-65% marks for a single question. If you'll go in that direction, and I do understand it's not possible to do everything in such a little time, but at least while preparation he could be aware of that, what kind of structure we develop about writing the answer. Now this is the second part of your answer. First we have talked about the explanation part on the background from which the concept has come up. The second part where you're explaining the idea. When explaining the idea you need to be aware of your language, you have to use the key term, and finally there should be certain statements explaining that particular concept are there. Now apart from these two parts, what we say, there is the analysis part. What technically you can say, it is content analysis part. Now in content analysis part, whatever the theory has been given, either this theory has been extended or it has been opposed. This is what your content analysis. So if this idea has been further extended, then whoever the new thinkers are there, who has taken the idea and further continued basically. further continued. I mean, this baseline ki hegemony has been accepted by many thinkers, and they started talking about that, how hegemony has changed or made the superstructure or the state very much important, and many new thinker has contributed in the idea of hegemony, and those who oppose the idea of hegemony, they should be on the other line. And again, this part must include here at least name of 2 scholars. Here also you can find at least name of 2 scholars, those who oppose the idea. And finally, I would say that, what you say, critical analysis or criticism of that particular concept. But whenever you write the criticism, that criticism doesn't mean general criticism or your criticism. Even the criticism has 3 specific parts. First part of criticism is basically scholars' criticism. There are many scholars who has directly criticized. That should be first, at least one name scholar. The second should be based on ideology. So you can talk criticism by liberalism, criticism by Marxism, criticism by any ideology. And now the third, what we say, general criticism. But normally what we do, we write a lot of general criticism. That general criticism without any validity, that could be general way. I mean, you cannot even name a particular person, okay, this has been said by this person. And one more thing, we are not enough learned to criticize, examine, comment on all these big shots. So if think maybe we are right, but that could be, but technically we are not eligible to do this one. So we need to stick with that, what official is that. And official, it means that the scholars who has criticized, ideologically it has been criticized, and now in general criticism. So if you write hardly 1 here, 2 here and 1 here, then again you can find the 4 criticism. I would say in a particular answer, every part has marks. Even how the idea has come, when it comes to the explanation, marks is divided here, marks is divided here, marks is divided here. Maybe here half marks is there, but marks will be there. Then again 1 marks, 2 marks, and finally this type of marks distribution is there. Even you write best way this explanatory part, if you miss any part of your answer, that marks will be deducted. It might be possible that you have written best and 5 marks allotted to this place and you got 4 marks, but you can get only the 4 marks because it has been allotted this much. Every answer has a particular structure. Without that structure, answer is considered to be incomplete. One more thing I would like to share. Normally, if the questions are general, then you need to write special answers. A special answer, it simply means that if the question is general, how you can specify and differentiate with the idea, okay, whatever you are writing in a direction. Normally it happens whenever the questions are easy and everybody did good, and we expecting very high marks, but the average marks will be always low. And if everybody is getting 115 or 120, that cannot be considered that something extraordinary has been done. It simply means that you fail to put the special knowledge where you can score good. So it's very important that any general studies, any general question, you need to go for a very specific type of answer, and the answer should be very formal. I use some words like answers must look like a formal answer. Answer must look like a formal answer. Sometimes your personal touch come in the answer. In theory part, there is no space for personal touch or any kind of personal explanation. What we do in paper 1, suppose explaining something and you can identify, or you are in position to connect anything what is going around us. You just connect and write it down. And maybe from your point of view it seems to be correct, but it cannot be. Again I repeat, there is a pure theory paper, theoretical paper, thinker's paper, which cannot be altered in any way. So here what we think, how good we are in analysis and in position to connect, it has no meaning at all. You need to stick only to the what has been written in the book. and go along with the idea. Your creativity cannot be applied here. I repeat my point. It cannot be applied here. It's a basic theoretical part. As in physics, you cannot introduce your own knowledge. In the same way, all theories paper you cannot introduce your knowledge, because it evolved in years, and very big scholars has written going through lot of studies and compiling the theories over there. That is why it should be taken in such a way. Is it clear to everyone? That should be the part, that should be the way of writing for the paper 1. Normally what we do in general paper, most of the time I found that student focus mainly on the explain area, and sometimes they come for the criticism area and they miss rest of the answer. And normally we have this scoring is quite less, paper was easy, and still fail to score good. This is the reason basically. Clear to everyone? Now there are few questions which is related to the statement, that is directly related to the concept. Few statements are related to the statements. In case of the statement, again our approach, what should be our approach of writing when we are explaining any statement? Any statement, a statement type, you can say statement type questions are there. Normally again how we write, what most of the students do, they just explain the statement, what the statement is saying. They just explain the statement, what statement is saying. Again I would say it has a structure. First thing, that if the statement is there, you need to put the statement in correct context. Correct context. I would say in what context the statement has been given. In what context that statement has been given. Again you can find, if any thinkers write something, suppose Hobbes is writing about explaining his covenant, if Locke is writing explaining his covenant, so that particular statement will always have a context. If they are writing about the role of state, again it will have a context. Idea is that without context, a statement is absolute and it cannot be explained in any way. Most of the time by studying the language, if you go with the literal meaning of the statement, it will be impossible to explain, because that is in context. For example, I'll give an example. Covenants are nothing without swords, are meant forced to be free, given by Rousseau. Now the point is that what exactly the meaning man's can force to be free. Without the context, this subject has no meaning. Until unless you understand that the context has been given, the general will are the people who deny to accept the general will, and they should be forced to accept, or they should be forced to follow the orders of the general will. So without context, the statement has no meaning. It is always important to understand the context. Is that clear? Now, the second important aspect is that once you identify the context, so this context is properly related with certain concept or idea. Concept or idea. Concept or idea. This context, every context has related with a particular concept or idea. As I have given earlier, that the Rousseau statement was related with the idea of general will. Similarly, when the statement this year come in the mains examination, how would I and my fellow beings behave if we were find ourselves in a state of nature, and what does this behavior tell us about innate predispositions? Technically, the context is all about what is the nature of the human being, how they can be come into a agreement, and how this agreement could be maintained over there. It has three typical parts, and specifically is talking about without Leviathan one cannot be controlled. So it is directly related with the idea why Hobbes deny all the right excepted only right to self-preservation. Every context, every statement has a concept or idea. Then you need to relate that concept or that idea with the concept and ideas over there. Clear to everyone? Now the third part is there. In third part there are analysis. This analysis part is that in overall context of his theory, in overall context of theory, this concept, this idea, or this statement is how far well tuned or well connected. Well tuned or well connected. Okay, I would say that मैं एक structure बता रहा हूँ. Every scholar has given a proper theory, and in particular theory, a lot of subparts are there. Sometimes these statements are actually to explain these subparts in favor of some subparts. So when you find out the context, that subpart, then you need to connect it that in overall theoretical concept where that particular subpart exists. Okay, if identify any statement given by Aristotle in context of his communism, by communism of women or property, so until and unless you connect it with the idea of justice, it has no meaning. Look, he was never intended to give the idea of communism. It automatically falls when he was explaining the idea of justice, because he finds that justice cannot be completed until and unless there is a communism to stop the accumulation of the property and stop family formation. He was not against the family formation. He was not giving any theory that we should not form the family or we should not have the property. That was not the main theory of Aristotle. Plato basically. Plato was mainly focusing on idea of justice. So you need to connect it with the overall statement, whatever the theoretical preposition is there, whether that statement is going in a proper theoretical context or preposition or not. That will be the, you can say, content analysis. If it is well tuned, suppose Machiavelli has given a statement where he is talking about king should be like this. So you need to write that his idea all about his statecraft and his purpose is all about to ensure the security of the state and extension of the state. In this context he has given this idea. My point is that every notion or every subpart is a part of a bigger idea. Either it is a Machiavelli, it's a Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, anyone is there. So when you clearly explain the subpart, you need to connect with the overall theoretical part, and then you can find a proper structure. So whenever your copy checker or examiner will there, you can find with this context, he can identify you are also understanding the subpart and you also understand the overall theoretical understanding. And it doesn't require a lot of lines, 2-3 lines are required. And finally you can find some critics are there about that concept. Nobody criticizes the statement, they criticize that concept. So technically you need to write about 1-2 names, those who criticize that idea or that concept. This is what we say the overall idea of a statement. Again, you need not to take a line whether it is a correct or incorrect, good or bad, value free analysis. Again, we are no one to comment on either Aristotle, Plato. We need to take the shadow of the other scholars who are commenting them. There should be the answer, the statement type of answers could be written in such a way. And you can again find, like in this paper also, question number 1 was related to this one. Rest of the things like post-behavioral approach, affirmative action, B.R. Ambedkar's idea of state socialism, Gramscian concept of hegemony, it all seems to be very much direct questions. But again, you need to explain them. Even when you talk about post-behavioral approach, I am talking about the post-behavioral approach. So you cannot write the features of directly the post-behavioral approach. You need to go for the background. Okay, why this post-behavioral approach was required? Why this post-behavioral approach was required? Because before that, the behavioral approach was there. An interesting part, the person who has advocated the behavioral approach, and again, he was the same one who advocated for the post-behavioral approach. So, what kind of issues he find? He traced, okay, these issues are there, and that is why behavioralism should be converted into a new phase, and post-behavioralism is there. And if we talk about the terms, key terms of the post-behavioralism, the two major key terms, action and relevance. Action and relevance. They are the two key terms related to the post-behavioralism. Then again, post-behavioralist has been also criticized. Like Jasper was there who come up with the new approach, integrated approach. Then you need to write the further aspect of what we have said earlier. So it seems to be post-behavioral approach. If you start writing, okay, post-behavioral approach has come after the behavior, it has been given by the David Easton, and then you explain these are the 7 methodologies, are the 7 features, that won't be enough to explain this one. My argument is, for everything there is a proper introduction. This introduction is the background to why this concept is there. Then the language, key terms, and the further explanation, then the criticism, and the criticism will be proper with the reference. Criticism, general criticism is not acceptable. General criticism is not acceptable. And you need to be very much cautious and aware if the question paper is very general. High probability of low score in general questions only. High probability if you are not aware of and you won't write in a direction. Otherwise, if the question paper is quite tough, so sometimes scaling works in your favor, or sometimes you hit the line even part 1, so the marking pattern is little bit high. But in general question, even examiners check the copy, because if I have said write down ABCD, everybody can write ABCD basically. But again, then for the distinction between two people, we will go for, okay, how is the writing, how is the presentation, and the rest of the things start matters basically. But if nobody is writing what is ABCD, then who has written, he should be always score good. Look, it seems to be in general way that the copies are not comparative, but most of the time examiners check the copy and they always have this mindset of comparison. If they got 10 copies written very bad and 1 copy written very good, the marks will be automatically high if somebody get the 11th copy, because these people are scholars only. It's not a computerized checking key, there will be no distinction. So these things matter, and that is why general question has to be written in a particular specific way. I would say a particular answer for a general question, then only ensure the high marks. Clear to everyone? This is what the paper 1 section 1 approach, and it is highly important to write such answer. Now we will come specifically for the part B, section B, IGP section. IGP section. Now in case of IGP section, most of the time again we have a very general approach, and as it has a convergence with the general studies, so a high possibility that we'll go in the same direction. Few distinctions could be easily made. Again, if the things has been taken IGP mein, you can go for the 3 sections. The first section, that is related with the national movement parts, national movement part. The second section is directly related to the constitution part, and the third you can find few notions and concepts. Here you can mention the social movement is there, or new social movement in India, caste politics in India. These trends you can find. Normally when the question is related to the national movement part, this is one of the toughest part to write, I tell you, because we again completely study the history part, modern history part, but when you write it in a political science, so you need to make a distinction between, as it is the answer of a political science. Here you need to be very much focused on the part of the political analysis rather than connecting it to the national movement, If somebody asks, okay, what is the contribution of Gandhi ji, for example, in you can say in political theory or in political ideas, explain the Gandhian political ideas. So you cannot talk about the strategy which he has used for the mobilization of the people. How these strategies could be connected with the standard political science terminologies and strategies. For example, when you talk about his idea of satyagraha, so it could be explained in terms of either it is close to the passive revolution, or it could be considered to active revolution, the standard of those things. This is important part. So you can find there are many scholars who has explained it in a political term. So you need to be more focused on that idea. Like one question was that Gandhian criticism of the modernism. So actually his criticism of the modernism as well as modern state, he rejected the idea of the Western state. So in what context he has rejected the idea of the Western state? Explaining the modernism. Again, his ideas cannot be explained in Indian context. We need to take it a little bit up on theoretical planes, how we identify Gandhi, But again, this Gandhi's criticism of modernism is not the criticism of modernization. Modernization theorists are very different. His criticism of the modernism was mainly related with the Western civilization and the Western state. Western civilization and Western state. So Western civilization, Western state, then he talked about the idea of modern polity, जिसे आप स्वराज कहते हैं, modern polity. So whenever you write these answers, so take the proper political context. Otherwise, it will always land in a wrong direction. It will be always land in a wrong direction. Now, one more thing I would say that prefer to write what these scholars have directly said. Look, why this problem is there. We never studied Gandhi from any primary source. What we do normally, the secondary source we study. If I say some Gandhi has written very fine books, so go through the Hind Swaraj. It's a very classic book. ज़्यादा मोटी भी नहीं, पतली सी book, आप पढ़ भी सकते हो. And here he explained lot of theoretical things are there. But normally Gandhi ji has been never reproduced in terms of political science. He has been reproduced in terms of history and the national movement over there. And that is why most of the writing about the Gandhi ji is in a different direction. तो यहाँ हम लोग को थोड़ी मेहनत करनी पड़ जाती है कि it should be properly in the, like IGNOU has written to certain extent his strategy and way of thinking to in the line of the political science. His idea about the environment, his idea about polity, his idea about satyagraha, it all has been written a little bit in theoretical context. This is always important that you fall in the line of the theoretical context, then it has a meaning. Now, let's come to the second part, the constitution, question related to the constitution. Normally, to differentiate with the general studies answer, again here commentary become important. Commentary become very important. Lot of scholars who really comment on that. You can make a list of those scholars also. For example, party system is there, Joya Hassan, specific big name, Pratap Bhanu Mehta you can find, Rajni Kothari you can find. There are a lot of scholars are there who has commented on the different part of our constitution. Austin is there, Alexander Pope is there. These are the scholars of the Indian constitution. When you write religious studies, there is no need to go for this commentary part. You need to be more focused on the different explanation part which has been asked directly. But you write a political science answer without this commentary part, again your answer will be like a GS part type answer. So if it is going to like a GS part type answer, marks will be also in the same, as it's very difficult to score in general studies paper. In paper 2 out of 250 hardly 99.5 score is considered to be, marks will be allotted that one. So if you write in a political science, the commentaries is very important again. Now for the commentaries, it's a big challenge from where we can gather these commentaries. So again I would suggest that it's easy to gather those commentaries. There are few good books. Like Partha Chatterjee has written State in India. पूरी किताब पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. The first chapter, introduction part, it has explained the entire book with a few ideas and explanations. It's required. Without that, things cannot be explained. I am giving the name of few more scholars. इसको आप, for example, for the next time, for next mains, you can collect it. For example, Sudipta Kaviraj. Sudipta Kaviraj has extensively written about the Indian state. I won't say that कि go with the entire writing. समझ में भी नहीं आएगा Sudipta Kaviraj if you study that. He's a typical Marxist writer. But at least in a Google, you can search idea of Sudipta Kaviraj about the Indian state. He talk about the Indian state, he talk about the secularism, he talk about the many concept of the Indian part of the constitution. At least 4-5 lines what he has said. Another famous name for the Indian politics is Pranav Bardhan. I tell you, these two scholars are one of most renowned scholars these days about the Indian state. Pranav Bardhan is a big name. Pranav Bardhan is a big name. Now, these two scholars again identify the area, what their statement is there. So, if you make a list of 10-15 scholars, so you can identify if the question related to the party system, these 4 scholars are there. Related to the Indian state, these scholars are there. Make a category of that and make a compilation. Look, this is the way to score. अगर आप journals type में answer लिखेंगे, might you score might 40%, but if you come up along with the commentary part, it's going to increase at least 10% of your mark, at least 10% of your mark, and your answer will also look like a political science answer. And again, the language and terminology. I would suggest that एक आध standard article पढ़िए. It will help you to understand how to write answer related with the IGP section. Normally, I rarely find that people for IGP section, except studying this BL Fadia and this general studies के लिए आप जो Lakshmikant, they go further for this. I recommended this book written by Pratap Bhanu Mehta, Oxford Companion book is. But sometimes after studying that book, students say, "Sir, article बहुत tough लिखे गए." It's not about tough. It's about a way of writing. That is the way of writing for IGP section. That is the way of writing for IGP section. When they come with the analysis, we come with the statement. You need to develop that idea. और उसके लिए क्योंकि आपको 8 पेज में आंसर तो लिखना नहीं, you have to write your answer in just 1 page or 1.5 page. So technically, if you go for cut and paste approach, 4-5 lines, you just cut it and paste it in your book, and at the time of answer, you can paste it in answer, you will be able to score. I tell you, that's true that 150 words or 250 words are not enough to judge, the scholar inside you. That is why you need to go for this cut and paste model. Look, I belong to the academics only because I did my PhD from JNU, my master's to PhD. I taught in Delhi University and Jamia. So that was purely academics. And here we keep on writing about 10 pages, writing on one idea. There's one question on secularism. For 3 hours we have to write 3 questions. 3 hours, 3 questions, and then we use a lot of scholars and writing 10-12 pages. But the UPSC is not in that direction. UPSC has an entire different idea, and that is why you cannot, use your skills of scholar. You need to go for a artificial, tailor-made kind of tailored approach, and then only you can score. And again, I would say it's not always knowledge correspondence to your marks. For the UPSC, it's a skill and arrangement of your answer that really sounds. It's not about the knowledge. You can find many people who have less knowledge qualified with the ranks. There are many good people, big scholars having all the degrees, studying from many years, still struggling in the mains exam. So it's not about knowledge only. Arranging your knowledge, tailoring it in such a way, and presenting it in the just 250 words, 200 words in a very fine way. That scores. So it is one of the reasons that people who have with a non-background, they score very good. That's the reason. That is why I am regularly suggesting that. Try to develop that approach. Like for the IGP commentary section, you work hard. There is no other option. I won't suggest you go through the EPW or some good magazines, nothing. Go with the Google, identify 10-15 scholars, scholar on new social movement, scholar on social movement, scholar on Indian state, scholar on idea of secularism, scholar on party system, scholar on collusion government. Identify the topic and make the notes. That will work. And it will work very well. Score आपको अपने आप पता चल जाएगा. I know many students, and one of my brother is also there, my own brother. He always score more than 250 in political science and he doesn't know anything. I tell you, it is just the tailor-made kind of. He's in job, so just writing for the mains, he come and write and go. And every time he qualify and appear for the interview. The reason being is that the tailored answer. The tailored answer. For in this section, this tailored answer is going to work. Because you cannot study the writings on the IGP section given by the different scholars. Now come to this part, notions and concepts. Again, I would say the approach should be more or less in the same direction. When you talk about the caste system, there is a proper theory given on caste. and I rarely find that anybody ever explain caste politics in India. I tell you, there is a one French scholar. He has given a theoretical model explaining the caste politics in India. Theoretical model. Then again you can find there is a Nicholas Dirk. He has given extensively alternative model of that. We never use the name of even these people. And again I would suggest that concept of caste, ethnicity related to the this social movement, lot of scholars are like, if you read the book of Ghanshyam Saha, again I won't suggest you to go to the book of Ghanshyam Saha, but the Ghanshyam Saha has extensively written about the peasant movement, women movement in India. Lot of scholars are there, but at least you should know the name, because these peoples are there who have studied theoretically, because in this section you can point two parts. One is theoretical parts and one is applied part. Now the applied part, like environmental movement in India. So you write in applied form, so where you talk about the different environmental movement in India, from Chipko to Apeco movement, that will be applied. But theoretical explanation of those parts are given by certain scholars. Just giving one name, Goa and Gadgil. They have come up with the idea, this theoretical explanation, that Indian environmental movements are primarily social movement, and then later stage it converted into the new social movement. In standard categorization, environmental movements are new social movement. They are not social movement. But this is the Gadgil and Goa has given the theoretical explanation. So you can write a lot about environmental movement in India. So how can you differentiate that your answer is for the paper 1 or paper 3 or for general studies section or essay or political science? This differentiations come with this theoretical explanation. At least 2-3 name, those who have studied the peasant movement in India, those who have studied the women movement in India, 2-4 naam and their theoretical explanation. Ek paragraph se zyada kuch nahi, just one paragraph, and then you write your answer. Your answer will be very much formal in structure, and then it will be a mark fetching answer. Clear to everyone? That should be the approach. That should be basic approach for the IGP section. And again, we never differentiate the IGP section with the general studies paper. I met a lot of students, they simply say, sir, I have studied the Lakshmikant, what else I have to? Lakshmikant has nothing to do with this paper basically. Even Lakshmikant is not enough for the paper to scoring in paper 2 GS itself. Lot of new things are required. The same thing about the political science IGP section. Now I'll come to the paper 2. Paper 2. This paper 2 is again a very articulative one. I would say that from past 2 years, paper 1 is general paper and paper 2 is very articulative. And it is one of the reason the score in paper 2 has a distinctions. Either people are scoring less than 100 marks or scoring more than 150. In fact, the rank 1 last year score in paper 2 170 marks. Now the point is that first it has been very much clear, score is possible. Now the second important thing, how one can score. How one can score. And the major issue with this paper also, you are always in the line to move into the category of general studies answer. It is again always there. Most of the time, again interacted with the many students, sir, I have written everything, score is low. But the point is that how you can differentiate it with your general studies answer. And when you write answer of political science in paper 2, which required a lot of articulation, in what direction you have articulated? You know about what is happening between India, US and China, but how it has been articulated, how it has been written, that's the most important precise thing about this. Now first we'll talk about the theory part. In theory part, one of the major issue that the number of theory mentioned in syllabus is quite less, and the paper you can find they always extend. I'm coming to this question, that there is a one question related to, okay, critically examine the functional and system approaches to the study of international relations. Question number 1, D. Critically examine the functional and system approach to the study of international relations. The critical examine तो बहुत दूर है. The first is what is the functional approach related to the study of international relations. What is the functional approach related to the study of international relations? And when it comes to the system approach, then what is the system approach studying of international relations? They are talking about Armand Easton, or they are talking about, there is one more thinker who has given the system theory, Martin Kaplan. They are talking about the Martin Kaplan. To whom they are talking about? Look, these are the normal confusion I am talking about. Because in paper 2 section, we don't have proper division. I'll just give an idea. Suppose in your syllabus, they have just mentioned the idealist. ये thinker दिया हुआ है. किताबों में कितनी जगह आपको idealism मिला? Idealism. But actually, the basic postulates of the idealism has been further taken by the liberals. Has been taken by the liberals. And actually, these liberals again you can find in 3 different categories are there. So, syllabus is in idealism and they can ask any question related to the liberalism. Either it is a complex interdependence or idea of neoliberals or neo-institutionals, neo-institutionalism, or they can contact about what we say democracies doesn't go for war, the idea of democratic stability theory. They can, lot of new questions are there, My idea is explain the syllabus. One of the toughest work for the paper 2 section 1 is the explanation of the syllabus. So idealism is there, but in idealism you have to study a lot. In that, liberalism, 3 branches of the liberalism, neo-idealism, and all the new theories coming along. इसी में आपको functional theory पढ़ना है, integration theory पढ़ना है, functional theory given by Mitrani and later on Ernest Haus, neo-functionalism and neo-functionalism. That is all part of this, and they haven't mentioned it directly in your syllabus. So that's the related one of the major problem. So again, my suggestion is that for paper 1, for paper 2, section A, first explain the different theoretical part. This is one of the important area, and this is the easiest part I am telling you if you understand this one. The reason being is that the theoretical evolution development in this area is quite less in comparison to the paper 1. So here you need to be very much direct in the sense the basic postulates are the basic features, key terms should be always there, name of the scholar. If I ask, can anybody name me post-colonial theorist? Amzalvi, और कुछ और बड़े नाम बताइए. Orientalism, a very famous book. Edward said. Look, there are new post-colonial theorists are also divided in 3-4 categories. My idea is that while studying this section, you need to be very much focused on the key terms, name of the scholar, basic postulates and their explanation. Now one important thing, from here only I am talking about the section B, India and world. It has direct linkages with the India and world. Now when you write answer related to India and world without identifying the theoretical element in that, the answer will remain always a GS answer and incomplete. If you are talking about Indian foreign policy towards China and you are explaining condition in Asia Pacific, so you should have theoretical parameters to understand the Indian policies in context of Asia Pacific region. So that theoretical perspectives can come from realism, that come from neoliberalism, that come from social constructivist, that can come from post-colonial approach. There could be a lot of new things are there. Okay, can you explain me that Indian president, there is a very good article recently published by Dr. Kante Bajpayee regarding the visiting of the Indian Prime Minister to West Asia and gifting them. You can find some model of mosque has been given, Quran has been given to these. How theoretically it could be explained? I mean, actually he has explained it theoretically, that's why I am asking. How these things theoretically could be explained? Very recent article published by Dr. Kante Bajpayee, he explained these ideas in terms of soft power, everybody know, but in soft power, the post-colonial approach. One of the element of the post-colonial approach is all about explaining the knowledge what the third world countries are, these countries are have. What their contribution in basically the study of international relations. Okay, I'll give it say in another way. In study of realism, liberalism, social constructivism, they never explain the cultural aspect, the religious aspect. These are not the factors in theoretical explanation, is it? I mean, none of the thinkers ever explained. So who explained them? Okay, these are the major factors playing in deciding the international relations. Most of the time post-colonial theorists. When they come up their own content, okay, these phenomena are there. The first scholar you can find that who explained the international relations theory from the cultural perspective. Kaun? Class of Civilization. Samuel Huntington. He was the first thinker who has studied the IR from the cultural perspective over there. And now most of the post-colonial thinkers are studying that. I'm just giving the idea. How can you fetch extra marks while writing your answer? One more thing. Your examiners for the political science are scholars. It's not like the copy idhar chali jati, udhar chali jati, kahin nahi jati hai. In UPSC only, so they come and write, and they are definitely big scholars. Well, those who are examining the copy. ऐसा भी नहीं कि सर उनको पता होगा कि नहीं, उनको हमसे बहुत ज़्यादा पता है. So they are all updated and well-versed people. So these theoretical concepts, what I was talking about, until unless you are in position, normally in newspaper we study the article that more or less explained in terms of, you can say, power politics, and we explain in that way. That is the general studies. When it comes to the political science, the theoretical element is there, and there is a general way of studying that. If study the Indian foreign policy and divide that, Indian foreign policy has multiple content of realism, content of neo-realism, liberalism, post-colonial theory. This all is in Indian foreign policy, and the combination of the different things is in context of the different countries. If you take India, Bangladesh, it cannot be more explained through the theoretical paradigm, but it could be more explained in social constructivist paradigm. When it comes to the India-China, you can find that it could be realism as well as social constructivism is there. Indian approach to the Africa, Indian approach to the Latin America, it could be all explained social constructivism and post-colonial theorists are there. So when you write your answer, बहुत नहीं लिखना है, at least first paragraph में 3-4 line theoretical propositions के साथ कि Indian approach towards is dominated with this theoretical line or this theoretical proposition, and that is your introduction and starting answers. Okay, I would say that if you go through, that's the important thing, what you study for this. Normally, we study for, as I said, that the major, either it could be the websites or the articles. We never study the scholar's article. The point is that study the scholar's article, they go with the theoretical explanation. And if you want to change the context, what I am trying to say, if you cannot study those scholars article, so do at least know the name of scholar. The same exercise what you do for the IGP section. Trace the name. If you study writings of C. Raja Mohan, he doesn't write in terms of scholars way basically. More of time he explains things in power politics. But there are scholars Like you can find, study the Sumit Ganguly book. You can find he tried to connect at some point of time the new book, written by this David Maloney and this C. Rajamohan. There is a one chapter, the 5 approaches of Indian foreign, theoretical approaches of Indian foreign policy. लेकिन ये एक उसको पढ़ते वक्त बहुत बोर लगता है, because it seems to be things are in theoretical perspective. Again I am saying, ये आपको एक ही बार बनाने की जरूरत है. You need to make it just once. It's not like that with every new event foreign policy explanations are changing. No, it's not like that. The Indian foreign policy towards the Asia Pacific from 2001 onwards is the same. It's going to be continuing even for the next year, next 10 years in the same way. So all the scholars who have written at that time, it is in the same direction. So what do you have to do? Like identify 10-50 name scholars, and after their theoretical explanations, just 2-3 things, 2-3 lines about the theoretical explanation and compile it. And similarly, even here you need to explain through the statements. You need to explain through the statements. और statement के लिए क्या? Make a list. I'm just giving the few ideas कि how you can divide the scholars, those who are applying the foreign policy. I would simply suggest that here you can choose the ambassadors, you can choose the renowned expert on that particular area and their expert. Our foreign secretary is appointed by the Indian side. It's the same thing you can do that, the foreign secretaries and the officials appointed from the other country. You can definitely, you can quote John Foster Dulles, you can quote the Henry Kissinger. So at least you have a line, identify the name. On India-China relationship, every time thousands of statement is there. We are not bothered about that statement, that's a different thing. But the point is that if you can write, okay, current ambassador has said that, one expert on India-China belong to the Indian side said that, and take a one renowned expert from the outside, at least 3 statements from one area. And you can identify it is in the economic cooperation, it is related to the boundary dispute, or it is related to the South China Sea. You can identify the area, 2-3 scholars. Again I am saying, this exercise is a purely tailor-made exercise. But that's the way to score. In general answer, anybody can write about India, China, what is happening in South China Sea. Everybody know this. How you make a political science answer, that's the most important part is that. Because in general studies, without naming this scholar, without taking the theoretical perspective, you are already writing a lot of things there. Like issue, nuclear proliferation, or it's a global concern, or terrorism. There is a proper theories of terrorism. There is a proper theories on terrorism. In nuclear proliferation also you can find the debate between Sagan and Kenneth Waltz is there, whether these works or not. Why don't you use those debates while writing your answer? If there any question related to the nuclear deterrence or the this part is coming, so you can use these topics. Again I am saying, understand, this is optional paper. In optional, theories are very much important. These are very much important. Again I would say that easy to understand theory, even that is not tough. Now the problem comes the applied part. India and world is the applied part. In the similar way, IGP is applied part, the theoretical applied part, and it is one of the most of it. And there is a high risk of entering into a general answer zone for the applied part. There is always, and most of the time applied part is very articulative, they are asking. It's not a general. Their articulation is always there. So you make a frame of your answer. Okay, always theoretical explanations will be there, name of the scholars will be there, and then come with the power equations or whatever the general explanation you are talking about that. If it's discussing, then make your answer at least in the 3 different categories. You can find that. Again, the current developments are very important. I repeat, the current development are very important for the content analysis. This is the content which has to be analyzed basically. That is why you are just connected the Indian foreign policy towards the Chinese side has many realist element explaining 1 or 2 ideas. And then quoting a statement given by any other statement. I mean, you can find the current foreign secretary of India, Jaishankar, specifically when the India and China entered into the trade agreement, every time these people make comments, just take a 1 comment on that, put it there while discussing this one, it become more or less a political science answer. Normally we come up with the trade data, this new treaty has been signed, The trade has been increased up to the more than 100 billion US dollar. The trade basket from the Indian side is a problem because the raw material and finished goods is there. From the other side, it's a finished goods is there, and this is how we write the answer. That just you are putting all the stuffs, nothing else. It is not in a direction, it is not in approach. While studying the answer, people will have a good factual knowledge about that. But what is the direction of the Indian foreign policy towards China? What kind of approach we are following towards the China? Which line of thinking is dominating the Indian foreign policy towards China, towards Pakistan? It has not been explained in any way. So this is what the crux. So if in paper 2 people go for such approach, marks are like 150 and 170. Otherwise, all clustered around 100, 105, 106, 110. So in paper 2 section, I repeat my point, 2-3 things are very much important. The first, theoretical one, and again you need not to work hard for this. I just give you the example. Suppose you are studying the South Asia. Now at least 1 or 2 scholars who have talked about the theoretical perspective or prospect of South Asian Indian foreign policy, how India is dealing with rest of the South Asian countries, and you can easily differentiate before 90s and after 90s. When the Gujarat Doctrine has been announced, there was a U-turn in Indian foreign policy towards South Asia. So if you say the earlier foreign policy was realist elements were dominating, but after that Indira Doctrine was purely based on the realist paradigm, but after that the mix of social constructivism, liberalism, sometimes even the realist element is also there if it is required. The idea of carrot and stick, again I'll take the name of scholar, that S.D. Muni. S.D. Muni is expert on South Asia. When the Nepal issue was going on, he specifically quoted that India is taking the line of what we say carrot and stick policy. Unka statement tha. You can quote it. Carrot and stick is a theoretical perspective. Kenneth Boulding ka diya hua idea hai ye, which has been used by S.D. Muni. Definitely we cannot use this, but S.D. Muni can use. He is a scholar, he is authority on South Asia. So again I would say that while preparing, देखिए बहुत वक्त नहीं देना है. While preparation, make a systematic arrangement for every areas. Formation of Indian foreign policy. When you talking about the different element of the Indian foreign policy, always think that it is in realism, it is in liberalism, it is in social constructivism, or in which direction it is there. And you can find a lot of scholars are there to explain these things. Lot of एक बार की मेहनत है ये. It's not like every time you just once find out the approach. Okay, this is what the content of the Indian foreign. From last 60 years, just 3 paradigm shifts are there in Indian foreign policy. Nehruvian was there, Indira Gandhi, and after 90s. There's not much change in Indian foreign policy in the theoretical approach. Changes might be in terms of tool, might be in terms of means. It is not in terms of approach. ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि the new government has come and we become more friendly to the Chinese side or Russian side. The same line is there, but the new tools has been there. Maybe earlier also, I'll just give example. For example, diaspora. The earlier also diaspora was important for the Indian foreign policy, but the new government become more intensive to mobilize the diaspora, or more concrete decisions has been taken regarding the diaspora basically. And when he went to the US or Prime Minister, he directly addressed the entire Indian diaspora to ensure that they are not just an economic asset, they are the political asset too, because the numbers are very high. It has a message. When he visited to the Australia, he did the same. So it's all about the diaspora policy, which is continuing from the 90s. He just intensified that. Indian foreign policy towards Central Asia, Connect Central Asia policy, that was from the time of S.M. Krishna. When he visited, he has given this name, but technically now a lot of new decisions has been taken and they started moving in that direction. Now the point of argument is that once just prepare, क्योंकि after 90s in different countries, और ऐसा भी नहीं है कि 50 country पढ़नी है, hardly 10-12 countries are there. Most of the questions are around those countries, US, China. You can identify in South Asia, you can prepare all the South Asian country, and then Japan is there, Australia is there. When it comes to the Southeast Asia, Vietnam is there. It's fixed. इससे ज़्यादा ही नहीं. Russia is there now, Britain is there. I mean, if you write down the name, hardly 20 countries you can find, hardly. and then you can identify the approach. So the theoretical perspective एक बार clear कर लीजिए कि which theoretical perspective is there, are the content of the Indian foreign policy is there, and then prepare the statement book. Okay, these are the statement. Then come up with the earlier explanation, जो पुरानी treaties हैं, दो चार basic fact, and then come with the new answer or what is happening in current. So a single answer will contain what? Theoretical approach, statements, all the earlier thing happened, few names. ये रशिया के साथ लिख रहे हैं तो 1971 की treaty is very important. Then what is happening new after 2005 or 2010? That should be the format of your answer, where you are quoting the scholars, giving all the detail of the new thing what is happening, that make a perfect answer. And then the scores you can find that is going to high. Normally bulk part of our answer is related to the current what is happening. सब करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ के गए होते हैं, सब याद होता है, वही लिख करके आ जाते हैं. And the expectation is there कि why not marks is there. It's a political science paper. The approach, it's a foreign policy. So foreign policy is not something, events. The Prime Minister visited to this place, sealed these agreements. These are not the foreign policy element. That's the applied part. कि okay, how to implement foreign policy. It's something like when you decide कि okay, यहाँ जाना है या ये target है, so for this target you do lot of things. So your target is the UPSC, and if you are staying here or taking tiffin or purchasing book, so it's not the main content is something else. So visit and sealing the deals are not the main content is for what purpose we are approaching to the South Asia, West Asia, Iran or wherever. What is the main reason? What is the basic thing about this one? That has to be studied basically. There should be a way of writing for this section. I always said for paper 1, paper 2 theoretical part, you can easily prepare this. Theoretical part you can in 2 sections. I always suggest that if you prepare 3 sections, paper 1, paper 2, section 1 will be complete. First, prepare theories and concepts like balance of power and all these concepts. The second, prepare area related to the third world countries. Third world countries. इसमें कई चीजें आती हैं, जैसे state in developing societies and advanced industrial society, political process in developing societies. Theoretical perspective में prepare Hamzalvi and post-colonial theorist. New social movement. आपको 2 सवाल इस बार का पेपर उठा के देख लीजिए. If somebody prepare this section properly, then at least he is in position to attempt at least 2 to 3 questions. आपको हमेशा मिल जाएगा इस सेक्शन से. That's the most important section. Focus more on that, these 2 areas, and then you can talk about the global concerns. Normally हम global concern में जो उसमें दिया वही पढ़ते हैं, but I would suggest that in global concern do study the globalization. एक चीज मैं इसके बारे में और कहना चाहूंगा कि in third word little bit extend the syllabus what has been given. Normally whatever we have studied, and most of the time either you are going with the Bailey Smith or going with the Haywood. These books are not containing the new ideas. You require just 4 or 5 lines, like the role of ethnicity, role of indigenous community. Environmental movement पिछले साल भी, मतलब last to last year they had a question of the indigenous community. Now this indigenous community, response of developing country, role of ethnicity, role of religion, these new things are what? It's all from the post-colonial perspective. ये जो topic है, ये हर साल extend हो रहा है. Every year this topic is getting extend. कि what is their views are there. So अगर आप पढ़ेंगे तो आपको समझ में आने लगेगा कि okay, these things has been written from the post-colonial perspective. If anything you can find that they are discussing like environmental negotiations maybe. If some theoretical perspective is there, identify that. You will be always in a better position to write and score very good marks, I am telling you. इस section को आप extend करिए, study, the political process, political parties, pressure groups in developing countries. What is their functions, what is their role, what are the theoretical aspect to define all these things. It's going to help you a lot. For this section, if you prepare this section thoroughly, and India and World, I guess GS के लिए है, तो इसको तो entire ही prepare करना है, and in fact it's going to, if you are in position to connect with the theoretical one, then even the paper 2 is going to score a lot. I believe if you follow this approach, the paper is going to be fine. But again, it cannot be followed just before the examination. It could a process. It is also a process. You need to develop it regularly. While developing your answers, while preparation, basically, you need to go with this approach. I mean, suppose you have to write next mains in October and November mein? October. So still you have a time, and you all have studied well once. So you need to just add on. जो भी आपका notes है, उसमें सिर्फ थोड़ा थोड़ा add on करते चाहिए. एक process की तरह इसको develop करिए. It's going to work basically. And ये approach भी अच्छी नहीं है कि just after the prelims you go for the test series and start writing the test series and now where answer is improved and not. Look, it's my experience. Most of the time when students write their answers after the pre, I found it that in 10 answers pattern is more or less the same. I mean, you cannot find much improvement. The improvement is in terms of content. आपको पता चल जाता है ये हमने गलत लिखा, ये सही लिखा, लेकिन approach के form में मैंने change बहुत कम देखा है. What I'm trying to say, after the prelim, this year also around 200 students were enrolled in my test series, and most of the time from paper 1 to paper 8 the approach remained the same, and I consistently commenting on the copies. किसी की कॉपी अगर आप मिल जाए तो देखिएगा, and sometimes I mentioned this also कि from test 1 to test 7 there's not much changes there. Sometimes they score better. It is because of the content. Sometimes they attempt less questions, sometimes they attempt more questions, so the score is high, but doesn't mean that your approach has been changed. One of the purpose of the test series that the approach should also be changed little bit basically. Got my point? So that is why it is in the process form. Chaliye, this is what all about the political science. Thank you to all of you from my side. Now I am in chamber. If anybody want to ask any question, we can discuss there. Thank you to all of you.